Now Ayrshire Radio Podcast presents Ayrshire Insights with Elliot Boyce.
Welcome back to Ayrshire Insights with me, Elliot Boyce, and as promised, we have a brilliant guest on today's show for this week's Local Legend Spotlight. We've got Ryan Leslie of FuelFit. Ryan, a massive thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Elliot.
So, before we find out a lot about you and how it all started, I want to know a few quick fire questions. So, are you a morning person or prefer late nights?
100% late nights.
A cosy night in or a big night in the town?
Cosy night in.
A ready meal? Well, it's like it cooked fresh.
I cook it fresh.
There we go. Well, coming up, we're going to hear how a dream became a reality for Ryan.
You're listening to Ayrshire Insights with Elliot Boyce.
Now Ayrshire Radio.
So Ryan, where did you grow up?
So, I was actually born in Rutherglen. We lived in Wishaw at that point, I think. And then Overton.
All right.
At that point, Mum and Dad managed Whitbread venues, and one of the busiest venues that they worked in at that time was the Newhouse, funnily enough. And
Makes sense.
and it was like a restaurant hotel. I'm sure it was Whitbread that owned that. And they always talk about, that has probably been one of the, the venues that they really kind of made their name.
So on that then, so you grew up, you were kind of bounced about a little bit just because of your mum and dad's job. When you say they owned Whitbread, they worked for Whitbread, were they managing in different venues? Were they staying there as well?
Yeah, so actually in the new house, my mum was pregnant with me.
Right.
And we lived in the manager's flat up above the
Brilliant.
restaurant.
So you grew up in hotels?
Grew up in hotels. Hospitality is in our blood. We actually had, funnily enough, in the new house, funny story, my dad he's right into motorbikes, or at that time he was right into motorbikes and cars, and he actually had a motorbike from when he was 18 years old, bought it brand new. At that point he would have been 32 or 33 or something, and there was nowhere to put the motorbike, so he actually pushed the motorbike up the stairs and had it sitting in the living room in the manager's flat.
I can imagine your mum loved that.
Aye. And then another funny, slightly scary story about that new house was that it got robbed.
All right.
And whilst Mum was upstairs pregnant with me.
Did she get the motorbike?
So, but no, it was we lived there, and then we moved to a house in Overton, and then that's where me and Joanne went to primary school. We were primary school there till about primary 3, and at that point my mum and dad had probably managed a few different places, 2 of them which were probably the busiest venues that they'd managed ever at that point, and then we moved up to Fort William for 2 years. Mum and dad got an opportunity to go up there to another Whitbread venue, and basically take that from, I think it was basically down the bottom of the rankings within the Whitbread group, and then I'm pretty sure they took it quite far up to the top.
Fantastic. So here in Ayrshire now, did you have jobs in Ayrshire? How did you end up here?
So we moved back down to Ayrshire when we were in primary 5, and I can remember actually when we were coming down one day and they were driving about all the different towns around. The place they were coming to manage was the Moncton Lodge in Whitbread, right. in Moncton, but I think they were obviously choosing where we were going to live, and I can remember just going round the car, going round all these towns to like different kind of new build areas to decide where they were going to move to. So they chose Kilwinning. But before the house was built, we lived in the manager's flat again in the Moncton. So we had plenty of fun in the fun factory.
I was going to say there's a pool kids play area there. That was actually somewhere, the Moncton Lodge, every single Christmas Eve when I was growing up. Myself, my mum dad family and also kind of family friends went to the Moncton Lodge religiously every single year.
Aye, I mean, at that point, it was a very, very, very busy place.
It was rammed.
New Year.
We used to do go every New Year, and then I think one year my mum won a DVD player. So that's telling you the kind of roughly when that was. It was a big thing. She won a DVD player, and then the way home we used to see Santa flying over.
Aye. Well, no, it was a very, very busy venue, and we, were in amongst it, peeling tatties, peeling carrots, talking to customers.
Job for everyone.
Aye.
So I was going to ask you what your first job was, but really probably from primary 6 you were in kitchens.
Well, I think when I was younger, I was always kind of creative and inventive and making things and like making traps. The first job was probably peeling carrots and sitting at the sink in the kitchen. Because at the Moncton we didn't, there was nowhere, because we lived there, we didn't have kids that we could play with around us or anything, so we were just pretty much in the restaurant most of the time, or somebody was looking after us up in the flat. But yeah, after that, we moved to Kilwinning, and my first job was when I was 15, washing dishes in the old Loans Inn, when it was the old Loans Inn before it got knocked down. I think it was one day in there, and then it was in the Gales in Irvine.
The Gales Hotel, there we go. Another friends of the show. We've had Lee Simpson on as well from Simpsons telling us his story. But it just shows, a massive journey that you've had going through hospitality, literally living in hospitality venues growing up, to now being involved in business. So you've worked for hospitality venues, you mentioned Simpsons. Anywhere else?
Yeah, so I worked for Simpsons, and then I started off washing dishes, got a chance to move on to desserts. Then I went through to the function suite and the banqueting kitchen. Then I moved, I think I done a wee stint actually serving in the function suite. And then, at that point I probably had a face for the radio because I was riddled with acne, so I wasn't
Thanks very much.
Sorry about that, Elliot.
Thanks very much. Feeling great with myself today. It's a Sunday morning, right?
But yeah, then I moved back into the kitchen again, and then kind of started into starters and mains. But then, my dad at one point he kind of left, management within Whitbread. I think at that point he actually struggled to get a job because, it was older at that point. And then my uncle, my mum's brother, was working within a company. That company was going bust. They then kind of they owned like a group of restaurants and hotels, and they basically looked to see, right, what one are we going to take on, and then they kind of took the risk to take on their own venue. It was a 12-bedroom hotel. At that point, it wasn't doing a lot of money, and they've probably 5 times the turnover of what it was doing at that
Fantastic.
point. So my story from that point is that I left the Gales and then went to to be fair, I actually moved to the Waterside when it opened, done a stint there, done a wee bit in the Loans, and then I went and worked in my dad's place for a while.
Brilliant.
But that didn't really last long because at that point I wasn't really a morning person. Still not a morning person, but yeah, I wasn't the best at getting up, and I think my dad just got to a point where he was fed up banging my door at 8 o'clock in the morning because I was still in my bed when we were supposed to be going to work. So I think I had enough at that point, so I then moved to Buzzworks.
All right.
My first job was Scots and Troon, on the veg section, which essentially is fryers plus anything that's fried plus a lot more. And Scots and Troon in the height of summer was probably the busiest venue in Ayrshire, and it was just absolute madness. Like when I look back now to what we used to do, it's just an unbelievable amount of prep and cooking to get ready for service. And then at Scots and Troon it was actually open till 11 o'clock at night. People could have food until, so it was a late finish, so it was a hard graft. But I think I really started to see what they were trying to create at that point. They were a brand and they were building a brand, and that's probably when I got a wee taste of something that I hadn't experienced before.
And instilled in you to now. So, working in employment to then self-employment, what was your jump? What made you think, you know what, I want to try something myself here?
Well, what actually happened was, I think my time at Buzzworks, was good. I probably get told a few times from head chefs, look, Ryan, you're great. The only thing is you can't get out of bed in the morning. And that was my downfall at that age. But yeah, basically at one point I just started to feel like I was made for more. Like, that's basically what it was. And it wasn't like an arrogance thing. It was just, I felt I just was made for more.
You wanted something different. You wanted a challenge. You
Yeah.
wanted to move to something else. I totally get that, and really, there's a lot of entrepreneurs start with that story. You've got to get a bit of real life experience, and that real life experience, and people like Simpsons, your dad, Buzzworks, helping you out with that, and instilling some stuff into you that you don't really probably know until you work in that environment. To now what you've got today. Now, I know that FuelFit isn't although it's your current company, there has been previous. Can you talk me through the previous ones, and then we'll go into FuelFit?
Yeah, so basically what happened was I was working in Buzzworks as a chef. I think I was about 22, 23. I was about 22, and my dad basically came up with this idea for colour-coded food storage system within commercial kitchens, which essentially is like red for raw meat, blue for raw fish. You get chopping boards, you get knives, but you didn't get full coloured storage containers.
Right, okay.
And the reason was because the environmental health came into his kitchen and said, look, we now want you to store your raw meat in separate containers for everything else. And then that was his wee light bulb moment. So it kind of tied in with the fact that I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing anymore. And he said, look, I've got this idea, but we're still kind of early days with the hotel. It's obviously that was his bread and butter. So he said, look, why don't you run with it? I think he knew that, at school, the only thing that I was really good at was art. That was the only thing that I was really, really good at. Best of my year, every year. I was just really creative. That was in terms of with my hands, drawing, creating, designing. So I think he felt that this was maybe a good thing for me to try and take on and run forward with. So big, massive learnings. Like, we made mistakes at the start, loads of mistakes that cost money. And then at that point, when we kind of started that, I joined a thing called Entrepreneurial Spark, which was like a startup business accelerator program. There was one in Ayrshire, Glasgow, and then Edinburgh, and then loads all over the rest of the UK. And it was kind of powered by Royal Bank of Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of partnered with it. So you got like an enabler, they were called, which at that point was Frank Gormanley. Don't know if you know Frank.
No, Frank.
So Frank, basically you had to go for an interview, kind of pitch what your idea was. It wasn't like Dragon's Den. You just basically had to go through a process of, telling them what your business was and why you needed help. So I started in that. We were probably about 4 or 5 months in with Tub It Safely, it was called, the business. And then we started to realise after being in that programme that, there was some mistakes made. But we had to kind of just move forward anyway. So I started, we went to a design agency, we built a website, we got the brand designed. So, started to learn straight away about working with WooCommerce, WordPress websites, how the back end works. I taught myself a lot during that time because, my dad had never done any of this before, and I was just doing it all by myself, really. Packing up we had a wee office out the back of his house. It was like a wee shed, basically. And I would work from there, pack up the boxes, send the orders out. Started to do pitching competitions with Entrepreneurial Spark, won some money, and just started to really learn about entrepreneurship, growth mindset, Yeah, that was really the start of my entrepreneurial journey.
Amazing. Now, we're going to talk about the big wins and the biggest lessons just after this.
Tune in live every Sunday from 10 a.m. for Ayrshire Insights with Elliot Boyce.
Only on Now Ayrshire Radio.
Now Ayrshire.
So, Ryan, what would you say for your first big wins been?
We were doing that business, and then during my time at Entrepreneur Spark, decided to come up with a meal prep business. At that time, I'd got right into the gym. The gym I was going to, there was a meal prep company kind of operating within there at that point. Obviously, with a chefing background and still a lot of passion for food, I kind of looked at what they were doing and thought, I think I can do that better. That's pretty much how it started. Purely because I felt that they could have been building more of a brand, around that. And that's when Jimmy's Kitchen got started. Then we, grew that. The biggest win at that point was probably just the growth that we had within a very short time. I think what we were doing, nobody else was doing it at that point. And
What was your USP?
Our USP was probably the brand, to be honest, and the fact that very quickly we had a website designed. We'd done a video, a kind of branding video that we launched as an ad and stuff like that. Locally, I would say that's what made us different. UK wide, there was loads of competition. But then, launching UK wide delivery with DPD was a big moment. Starting to employ people.
Comes with the challenges as well.
Yeah, no, it definitely comes with loads of challenges. But yeah, that was probably the first big win. Was probably growth, realising that I had something there.
So from Jimmy's Kitchen, so is that still trading?
No, so Jimmy's Kitchen's not trading anymore.
What was the reason?
Well, we just decided, I kind of fell out of love with the brand. And I felt that, at that point, during lockdown, we'd started a dine-at-home brand. We had a takeaway, all operating out of the kind of one kitchen. And that was probably when I just had shiny object syndrome. Was doing too many things, spread myself too thin. And yeah, it just probably started to plateau. But when we started to work with people and athletes, like, all over the UK, we quickly realised that Jimmy's Kitchen, people just didn't really get it. Like, Jimmy's Kitchen was a play on, the gym, Jimmy being Scottish. Some people thought my name was Jimmy, to be honest, for about 2 years. But
Jimmy, I had to change that when you come in there and you told me that Jimmy Leslie.
But yeah, I just fell out of love with the brand, and it just got to a point where we had to kind of start afresh, learn from the mistakes, rebrand to be more UK wide, and create a brand that people could wear. If we sponsored people, it just all made sense. CrossFit was on the rise. We wanted to be more of a sort of performance, fitness focused meal prep company. And that's really when FuelFit started.
So that was where FuelFit was born. Now, you've mentioned your big wins. You've obviously spoken about the various companies that you've got to in order to now have FuelFit right here today. Throughout that time, you must be someone who's learned a lot of lessons. What would you say to somebody right now that was maybe early on, maybe has an idea similar to you, they've walked in somewhere and go, do you know what, I can maybe do that and make a difference? What would you say to someone that's got an idea about advice about if they're starting something, how to manage things like cash flow, how to manage their kind of day-to-day mindset, what they go on, what do they prioritise on, who do they speak to? What would you say to them?
I would say that you need to just do it. Like, taking the jump is the first step. I mean, my journey's probably been a bit different. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, yeah, mine started from an opportunity from my dad, really. But, I then took my own leap and thought, no, I think, this is what I need to do. And I was quite fortunate with getting the kitchen that became available and stuff like that. But I would say that, yeah, initially just taking that jump to just to do it, and then managing cash flow is probably the hardest thing. That's why businesses go bust. So funnily enough, this probably sounds a bit backwards, but not always focusing on making the biggest percentage of profit you can make, because at the early days, being profitable is hard to do. You know, at the early days when you're starting up, you know, you're going to be spending a lot of money to get set up. So, you know, mistakes that I made in the past was probably always try to buy, you know, because we were using a lot of packaging and tubs and cardboard boxes and whatever, you know, always try to buy in bulk to get the best price. But in actual fact, when you're small, you know, you don't have the luxury of the cash to be able to do that.
Cash or storage.
Yeah, so, you know, cash flow is king at that point.
Yeah.
So, you know, not always focusing on getting the best unit price. Obviously, you need to be on your numbers, and the numbers need to make sense. But, you know, growth and growing growing sales and marketing is the main focus at that point. And now, you know, managing cash flow, I actually just set up different pots within our bank, so that one's for profit, one's for VAT, one's for your PAYE, and the money goes in and it doesn't get touched, because that money, it's not yours, it's the business. So I would say since I've done that, you know, the business has been in the best position it's ever been.
That's a really good way of doing it, and I think a lot of people, and you, for somebody who has got a successful business and is growing it, a simple thing, and there's various different banking apps out there that can help, but having the pot, and I know people that use pots, and it's just every month I've got that, the kind of, whether it's a rainy day fund in personal life or indeed the important things, because there's certain things that don't go away, and you've got to have your wages, you've got to have your VAT bill that must be paid. So an amazing thing to see, and how you manage that. Now, going through it all, you've obviously learned a lot of lessons. The information and knowledge that you're sharing just now is probably through a lot of experiences. Hardest days, what would you say your hardest point's been?
I would say my hardest point was when we were transitioning and we were rebuilding, we were building a bespoke website, and basically everything was coded. It wasn't just an off-the-shelf thing. And we were designing something that both us and the company that we were using had never designed before. And both parties probably didn't appreciate how big a beast it was that we were trying to build. Big learnings from me for me at that point. But we were just getting to a point where, like, I had invested a lot of money into this platform, on the basis that we spend the money now, it's built within X amount of weeks, and then, you know, we can last that long, and then, you know, we kick on, the rebrand happens, you know, we build this new website that's all singing, all dancing, and the sales start coming in. But what turned into, you know, what was supposed to be 12 weeks was 12 months. And, you know, I just remember one day, like, sitting in the van thinking, what am I going to do? Like, probably quite emotional, actually. It was the first time in my business journey that I actually hit a point like that, because it was just, I just didn't really know what I was going to do, because I was probably running out of money, which was the reality. And then, you know, probably quite quickly after that, I thought, right, I need to just totally sort this out here. We still had the takeaway. I had a wee side hustle cleaning carpets, funnily enough. So
just doing anything to keep the cash coming in while you were trying to grow this. Basically. And this was FuelFit.
Yeah. Basically. So I then made a kind of big decision and thought, right, I need to just speak. I have a really good relationship with the company that, you know, we were using. I still do. There's nothing there. I just said to them one day, I said, look, I need to just shelf this project. Like, I need to just shelf it. We're going to go back to using this white label platform that we've used previously. You know, it doesn't look exactly how we want it. The user experience isn't exactly how I want it to be, but it's got all the functionality that I need. It was going to cost a monthly payment to move to that, but it was going to allow me to focus on sales and marketing. And then at that point, I also cut off the takeaway. We stopped doing that. I stopped doing all the wee side hustles and, you know, legal side hustles.
I know. I was going to say this is live. Cleaning carpets.
Hi, cleaning carpets. And yeah, just went all in. I just thought, you know what, it's all or nothing. Let's go. And from that point,
that's brave. I mean, that at a point that was so challenging that you're having to make big decisions to shelve things, to go, do you know what? Nah, I'm making that call.
Yeah.
I'm shelving it, and also I'm stopping all the other. This probably what, as much as it maybe brought in a revenue stream, it's one of those ones that's a distraction. And if you're trying to grow something, you really need to give it 100% focus, 100% time in order to do it. And it's probably another thing for people who do want to grow businesses that might be trying to juggle, and I'm probably the worst example ever of this, of juggling like full-time employment along with trying to grow something or to create a brand or to do something that you're trying to grow. Now, I get that maybe just dropping something off, it might hit you in the pocket short term, but then long term, you'll reap the rewards.
Yeah. And that's what's happened. Like, you know, profit wise, we've been sitting in the best position we've ever been in. Cash flow, great. You know, I've really, you know, I've not spent money when we've not had to. In the past, I probably was really bad at, you know, myself having shiny object syndrome. I think chefs like buying new toys for the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, that's the fact. And, you know, I was probably bad for that in the past, and not, you know, I think the business needs to be there to be spending the money.
Yeah.
If you've not got the sales there, then, you know, don't buy the thing to make the money. You know, make the money first and then buy the thing that makes it easier.
Really good point of advice there. And again, you're right. You can look at something and go, right, I need. And before you know it, I've spent all this cash. I don't have enough cash to actually get through the next month, and then you don't have a business.
Yeah. And I think that's quite easy done. And I think you have to make them mistakes first yourself, you know.
Yeah. So I think as well, you're right. It's a lot of people. I mean, you can have all the advice in the world, and you certainly with the background with your mum and dad, what they've been involved in, obviously managing hotels, probably gave you so much advice. But until it happens, until you see it, that's when you really learn. And
I think that's why, you know, things have been going great recently, because it was me that made the mistakes. It was my call, and you know, that's what hurts most. So when it hurts, you don't want to do it again.
Absolutely. Now, we've spoken about hard days. What would you say? Do you know what? You've probably touched on your difficult decisions. I can imagine shutting Jimmy's Kitchen was probably a difficult decision for you to make at the time.
Yeah.
Moving on to proud moments. So what would you say your proudest moments been so far?
Well, I mean, my proudest moment so far has been winning Scottish Edge.
So tell us about that. So we've not really touched on that whatsoever. So you were at Scottish Edge, what was the past week or so?
Yes, well, the competition was the biggest, well, I didn't know this until they told me, but it's the biggest business competition in the UK.
All right.
I think it's the biggest prize pot in the UK, basically. It's an application process. You need to submit a 3-minute pitch by YouTube video link, and quite a lengthy application form, which really gets you thinking about your business. So we applied for that in, when was it? I think it was July or August, and then you find out there was 290 applicants, and then out of that 290 applicants, 54 people get through at the semi-final stages. Semi-final stage is then another 3-minute pitch, but this time in front of a panel of 4. It used to be live, but now it's over Zoom. And then it's a 10-minute Q&A, and it's just you just go on the call. You've got 14 minutes. You do your 3-minute pitch, then straight onto Q&A, and then it's basically thanks, Ryan, see you later. So, you know, you don't really know how you've done, because I suppose you're always quite self-critical. But when I done like a practice pitch before that, I got a chance to do a practice pitch with a panel. They give you a chance to do that with some partners that they've got, and that went well. But then in the actual pitch on the semi-final, they asked me questions that were totally different from the practice pitch. I got a few smiles when I answered questions, which maybe gives you a wee indication that you've maybe answered it the way they wanted you to answer it. But then obviously you just don't know. Like, you know, there's 54 people with great businesses. Are you going to be the one that gets through to the final? So out of the 54, you then get a call 4 days later to say whether you're through to the final or not. 24 people go through to the final, and thankfully we were one of them. The final is at RBS Gogarburn, their headquarters in Gogarburn. So it's a live pitch in front of a panel of 4 on the stage. There's 2 rooms. one sits 300 and one sits 80, and then they basically send you out an email to say what room you're going to be in, and of course I was in the one with 300. So
Bigger crowds are easier.
So I'm not going to lie, I was absolutely papping my pants, and I just practiced my pitch. But I took my pitch up with me just in case I just fluffed it. So yeah, pitched to a panel of 4 with 300 people in the crowd. Obviously my family, my partner Jenna was in the crowd, and my sister, mum and dad, and they were videoing it just so they could show everything. And then I basically just sat and watched the rest of the pitches that day. I was quite early on. I just sat the rest of the day just to watch everyone else, and some of the pitches were great. And then you find out the next day if you're a winner. So we found out we were a winner. We got the call from Evelyn McDonald, who's the CEO of Scottish Edge, to say that, well done, Ryan.
What was that call like? 'Cause what did you get? I mean, it was big money.
Well, you don't find out on that call
Right.
what you get.
So so how did you feel when you got the call after watching the 54 other pitches? I mean,
Aye.
how did you feel?
Well, initially, I'm just like, I it's hard to tell because you don't know. I felt that the questions went well. The Q&A went well. The pitch went pretty well. So you don't really know though, because somebody could just be better than you. Do you know what I mean? And that's there's some great businesses with AI, biotech, all sorts.
A lot of the buzzwords just now as well.
Aye. So I just didn't know how I'd done. But I felt like the business, the numbers, our numbers were good. We've got a good story. We're employing people. We're doing all the right things. We're ticking all the right boxes. So when she phoned me, and she said, "How do you think you done?" And I was like,
What a horrible question.
well, I kind of thought, well, if you're asking me that, then it must be good. And I was like, I don't know. I said, honestly, I think I've done okay. She said, well, you've done more than okay. You're a winner. Right?
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, at that point, you're just kind of thinking, I can't believe it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's unreal. And then she was just really nice on the phone and saying, how well we done. And then I think I came off the phone and I probably just cried.
No wonder. It's a lot of pressure to get that phone call. The phone call that, if you think of the number of participants, number of applications that even went into, it's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, at that point, I'd put myself under a lot of pressure. We'd just moved into a bigger unit, 4 times the size of what we're in. We had a very busy few months before that. Just employed a head chef. There was loads of stuff happening at that point. And I was, staying up late, working every day. Really, really probably pushed myself to the limit. So I think it was more of just a bit of a relief to kind of say, like, someone else thinks, a panel of 4 people think I've got something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that, when you're an entrepreneur, it is quite a lonely road. You're always kind of in your own head. My partner Jen is obviously with me along the way every step, and we can bounce off stuff. Mum and dad are really supportive as well, but it's you that's making decisions, and I don't really have I don't want a safety net either. So yeah, it was just a bit of a kind of relief to say, do you know what, I've got
something
there.
that sees value in. Now, what have you got anything now in terms of what is it you get for winning it?
So we actually, basically, the top prize is £100,000.
Wow.
And Evelyn told me on the phone that all the winners, she wasn't allowed to tell me who'd won or anything, but she just said that all of the winners have won between £60,000 and £100,000.
Wow.
So I knew that we'd won at least £60,000. But there was some special awards as well, which was the Scale Award, Scale Edge. So there's like 12 winners, but there's 4 awards that are kind of special awards, if you like. One's called the Scale Edge Award. One's called the Pathways Award. One is, I can't remember what the other 2 are. But we ended up winning the Scale Edge Award, and that was the top prize of £100,000.
Fantastic.
And also a place on the Scale Up Scotland programme, which is run by the Hunter Foundation, Sir Tom Hunter's foundation. That's his Scale Up programme.
Absolutely amazing. And so what's your plans with the 100k?
So our plans are that we're going to, essentially we want to be the number one meal prep company in Scotland. Because right now I don't feel like, there's some great, there's some great businesses out there, but I wouldn't say Scotland's small enough for there to be a number one player, really. Yeah. And we want to, I just want to build something big enough that people know that, that's the Scottish meal prep company FuelFit. Because we did try and compete with, we've tried to compete with down south in the past, but there's some really, really big businesses that are really, really, they're great businesses down south, similar to what we are doing. And the reality is that, the palate in Scotland is just a lot different from down south. And I kind of realised that at one point that we had to change our offering and be more suited to the Scottish market. So we're going to basically focus on Scotland. We'll still ship all over the UK, but we're focusing on Scotland, really creating a really good offering for Scotland. We're rolling out these new smart fridges, which is what our new innovation is, which is essentially a sort of self-serve fridge that you would then be able to just go up and purchase a meal without having to, have any human interaction, going to reception or anything like that. It's essentially a vending machine, but it does a lot more than that. So that's what we're kind of going to be rolling out over the next 6 to 12 months. We're looking to employ a sales lead, sales manager, and also a marketing manager.
Fantastic. Now, we've heard about the listeners' tenner bargain of the week, but up next, Ryan, I'm looking for you to let me know your bargain of the week, plus finding out what drives Ryan Leslie to give back locally.
Now streaming
Ayrshire Insights, hosted by Elliot Boyce.
This is Now Ayrshire Radio.
It's time to talk community charity and Ayrshire Pride. But before we do that, the listeners have been in touch to let me know their weekly bargain. So the question with you, what's your bargain of the week that you've got for a tenner or less?
Well, I was lucky enough to be on a stag do in France skiing last week, and it was quite expensive, but the bargain of the week was a chicken and pesto panini for €6.50.
And that's a bargain.
I
I know.
That was the bargain.
Well, there you go. That is a bargain. The listeners get in touch with us every single week and let them know with some crazy ones. But yeah, one from France. So Ryan, back to you. Why support local causes like us here at Now Ayrshire Radio?
Well, I think Ayrshire, sadly, North Ayrshire in particular is, one of the most deprived areas in Scotland. And, we need to be doing something to try and, create jobs, give back, and just make it a better place, really, to bring up children. And one of the things that we do at the moment is we're sponsoring a football coaching academy for young kids. It's Broadfoot and Crawford.
Yeah.
Coaching academy.
Yep.
And we also give to kind of local charities, and we gift vouchers to buy our meals. Scott Brown, who's he does like a 10k Boxing Day charity event. We're donating some prizes and giveaways for that. And then we also do Too Good To Go, which is basically an app that you can use to so there's no food waste. So that's probably our bit for the.
Talk about that though. What's the app then?
So Too Good To Go, it's basically an app that you can use it to get stuff from Morrison's. I think other places, other restaurants and cafes and bakeries use it as well. Where basically at the end of the day, if there's food that essentially is too good to get thrown out, then it goes onto this app and people can buy a bag for a fraction of the price of what the food would normally cost. And we do that, one, because we don't want the good food going to waste, and two, it's maybe giving people an opportunity to purchase some good quality fresh food for a fraction of the price.
Nah, fantastic. Now we are going to finish strong with a fun round, but we're going to find out what's next for Ryan Leslie just after this.
This is the Ayrshire Insights podcast with Elliot Boyce.
Now Ayrshire.
it's now time for 5 fast ones. So Ryan, I don't want you to think about it, just shout out the first answer that comes into your head. Are you ready to play 5 fast ones?
On you go.
Right, let's go. Favourite takeaway?
Indian.
A song that always lifts your mood?
Robbie Williams, Angels.
Best thing about Ayrshire?
The beautiful views.
Weirdest moment at work?
Cinnamon Challenge.
Well, that was certainly weird. And who plays you in a movie of your life?
Ryan Reynolds.
That you're good, mate. Right, thanks for playing 5 fast ones.
When I had to.
We'll be asking our guests every week to get involved. So what is next for you and your business, Ryan?
So really we're just on a massive scale up journey now. You know, probably I need to invest more in myself and becoming the entrepreneur that I need to be, that I'm not just now. You know, I don't know what I don't know, and what we're about to do I've never done before. So, you know, looking forward to learning, employing more people, employing some superstars that are going to help grow this business into something that, you know, I've dreamt of.
Fantastic. What's one thing that you hope for Ayrshire's future?
For Ayrshire's future, I just hope that it becomes a place that people, you know, want to do more business. I think we have some great businesses in Ayrshire at the moment, but, you know, I think there is some areas that we do need to improve on. Child poverty is one of them. I think I would just like to see that get better. Now, throughout your journey, you've mentioned a lot of names, but have you got any final shout outs or thanks to people who have helped you along the way? I suppose along the way, from start to finish, like, you know, my mum and dad obviously give me the opportunities that I've had from a young age. Buzzwalk, Simpsons, Sir Tom Hunter, having Entrepreneurial Spark in his place, give me some opportunities that he gave me at that point with the kitchen that was there and stuff. We're now kind of full circle because we're back to, our unit is now back in the Olympic Business Park. You know, my partner, Jenna, is listening to me every day. Just all my family and friends as well. They've been really, really supportive over this past couple of months with, you know, winning Scottish Edge and folks sending cards, and, you know, it's just been really nice.
Amazing. It's an amazing journey, an amazing story, and really excited to see what the future holds for Ryan Leslie. Ryan, a massive thank you for coming on the show.
Cheers. Thanks, Elliot.
This is the Ayrshire Insights podcast.
Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe now.